Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Easy English Spark channel. I'm thrilled you've joined us in our cozy English learning house. Today, we'll take you through a simple 10-chapter story, from A Fresh Start by the Shore to New Horizons, to boost your English listening and speaking skills. Along the way, you'll hear key phrases and practice real dialogue that builds confidence and fluency. Ready to light up your English journey? Let's get started. Chapter 1. A Fresh Start. I open my eyes to the hush just before dawn, when the ocean is still deciding what color it wants to be. A pale silver light filters through the thin curtains of our seaside cottage, and the distant roar of the waves sounds like a gentle drum roll for the day ahead. Grandma Rose's old cuckoo clock hasn't even chirped yet, but I'm already awake, wrapped in the familiar scent of sea salt and lemon soap that clings to every corner of our little home. I lie there for a moment, listening. Beside me, my sister Mia breathes softly, her dark curls splayed across the pillow like a fan of seaweed. She mumbles something about dolphins in her sleep, a sure sign she's still in her favorite dream. I smile and slip out of bed as quietly as I can, the wooden floor cool beneath my feet. Somewhere in the hallway, a board creaks and complains, always the same one, always in the same pitch, as if reminding me that this house is alive and paying attention. The kitchen beckons with the faintest amber glow. Grandma Rose is all ready, moving about, her silhouette framed against the cracked enamel stove. She hums an old sailor's tune, a lullaby for grown-ups, and the sound fills the room with warmth even before the stove's heat does. The smell of blueberry pancakes drifts toward me, sweet, comforting, and a little bit magic. Grandma turns and catches me watching her. The wrinkles around her eyes fold into familiar, gentle pleats. "Morning, Leo," she whispers, as though the ocean itself might still be sleeping. "Fetch the bowls, won't you?" I grab 3 chipped ceramic bowls from the open shelf, careful not to knock over the jar of sea glass that Mia and I collect whenever the tide gifts us something bright. My hands know the exact weight of each bowl, the speckled one for Grandma, the slightly shallower one for me, and the tiny teal-rimmed one for Mia, because she always insists hers looks like a mermaid's dish. Grandma flips a pancake with the ease of a seasoned magician. The sizzle as it lands makes my stomach rumble. I set the table, eyes lingering on the chipped edges of the plates, each chip a tiny memory. The time Mia slammed her fork down because I stole her last raspberry. The time I tried to spin a plate like a circus act and failed spectacularly. Each imperfection is a stamp of our life together, proof that these objects have been loved, broken and loved again. A sudden screech from the hallway announces Mia's arrival. She rounds the corner, still in her dolphin pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Is today Tuesday?" she asks, as if Tuesday is an exotic destination. "Thursday," I say. She frowns. "But Thursday's the day we do beach cleanup after school. My feet will get all sandy." Grandma laughs, a sound like the first clap of sunshine after a storm. "Your feet live for sand, my little sea sprite. Besides, the beach needs its heroes." We gather around the table, and Grandma pours maple syrup over the stack of pancakes. The syrup trickles down in slow motion, catching the light like melted gold. Mia pokes a blueberry and it bursts softly, painting her fingertip purple. I breathe in the steam rising from the plates, and for a moment, nothing else in the world matters but this shared silence of anticipation. Before we eat, Grandma closes her eyes and declares her daily reminder, "May our hearts be as wide as the ocean and our spirits as bright as the morning sun." It's not a prayer exactly, more like a family spell, binding us to good intentions and open horizons. Mia and I echo the words, our voices overlapping, creating a kind of braid made of sound and hope. After breakfast, Grandma ties her floral scarf over her silver hair and hands me the small wicker lunch basket. Inside are 2 neatly wrapped parcels: cheddar, sandwiches for me and Mia, and a folded doodle Mia drew last night of the 3 of us riding a giant turtle. I slip the drawing into my math notebook for safekeeping. The world outside greets us with a salty breeze that immediately lifts the corners of Grandma's scarf. Our cottage sits on a low bluff dotted with dune grass, where seagulls perch and call out like rowdy neighbors. The path to Coral Bay Elementary is a crescent-shaped trail that hugs the shoreline, and every step is familiar, from the smooth driftwood log we balance onto the cluster of tide pools that glimmer like scattered mirrors. Mia skips ahead, tracing shapes in the air with an imaginary paintbrush. She tells me she'll color the sky peach if today's art assignment is boring. She says one of the clouds looks like an octopus riding a bicycle. I nod along, adding that I see a swordfish playing the trumpet. We laugh, because the best part of imagination is the echo it creates in someone else. When we reach the weathered wooden pier, Mia stands at the edge and cups her hands around her mouth. "Good morning, Coral Bay," she shouts. The words bounce off the water and back to us, in rippled whispers. An old fisherman, Mr. Riley, tips his faded cap. "Morning, little captain," he calls. He gives us a wink, then returns to untangling his nets like a patient spider mending its web. We continue walking. I spot a cluster of hermit crabs scuttling sideways, and for a second I envy their mobile homes. How easy it must be to carry one's life on one's back. Mia asks whether hermit crabs ever get lost. I tell her they probably rely on sun, tide, and an unshakable sense of home, just like we do. The school bell rings faintly in the distance, carried on the wind. We quicken our pace. As we pass the last dune, I glance back and spot Grandma on the bluff waving her checkered kitchen towel like a tiny flag. The towel flutters wildly, white squares flashing in and out of view. I raise my arm high in reply, and Mia does the same, our silhouettes tall against the rising sun. For a fleeting moment, I feel suspended between two worlds, the cocoon of our cottage and the buzzing hive of school that awaits. And yet both are stitched together by the simplest thread, love that travels any distance, even the 10-minute walk to Coral Bay Elementary. Before we step onto the asphalt playground, I stop Mia. I kneel so we're eye to eye and smooth a wayward curl from her forehead. Remember, I say, if the day ever feels too big, just call on your secret superpower. She grins, showing the gap where her front tooth used to be. Which one? The power of small steps, I remind her. One breath, one thought, one kind word at a time. She salutes me like a miniature admiral and charges toward her classroom, her backpack bouncing like a buoy behind her. I watch until she disappears into the doorway, then draw in a deep lungful of briny air. The gulls circle overhead, the tide creeps in, and the horizon glows a soft pink promise. Today, like every day, is a fresh start, and I feel ready to meet it, armed with pancakes, pocket change dreams, and the unwavering certainty that home follows us wherever we go, as long as we carry each other in our hearts. Chapter 2. Morning by the Shore. I step outside, and the world greets me with a chorus of crashing waves and gull cries that tumble across the bluff like excited messengers. Overnight, the tide has crept closer, leaving the sand damp and cool, darkening it to the color of polished bronze. The whole beach feels as though it has taken a deep breath and is holding it just for us, waiting to see how we will fill the space between sunrise and noon. Mia is already half a dozen paces ahead of me, hopping from one tuft of dune grass to the next as if the ground were a string of stepping stones. Her backpack bangs against her shoulders, making a soft thump with every leap. She moves the way sea foam skips across the surface of a wave, light, unpredictable, and utterly certain. It belongs exactly where it lands, I jog to close the gap, my own pack thudding less gracefully. The contents: textbooks, notebooks, a carefully wrapped packet of Grandma's lemon muffins, jostling against one another like impatient passengers on a crowded train. The path to Coral Bay Elementary curves along the shoreline, tracing an arc so perfect it looks drafted by a compass in the sky. On one side, gentle dunes roll toward the road, their slopes patched with spiky grass and pink sand verbena. On the other side, the beach opens into an expanse of silver water that winks at the rising sun. Each morning on this path feels like walking the edge of an enormous, ever-changing painting. Clouds smudged by unseen fingers, water shaded from pale gold to peacock blue, and the horizon drawn as thin as a whispered secret. Mia stops suddenly and crouches. "Look!" she calls, though I'm barely a yard away. She points to a tide pool the size of a kitchen sink, its mirror-still surface broken only by the occasional ripple of a curious fish. A sunflower yellow starfish sprawls lazily on the pool's sandy bottom, and tiny anemones pulse along the rocks like miniature galaxies. Mia's eyes widen, reflecting the pool's quiet universe. She reaches into her pocket, pulls out a stubby colored pencil, and sketches the starfish in the margin of her homework sheet. One quick doodle, 2 deep breaths of salty air, and she is up again, running forward as though her body can hardly contain the overflow of discovery. I follow, but at my own pace, stopping to pick up a piece of driftwood bleached white as bone. It fits my hand like the handle of a captain's wheel. I sweep it through the air, imagining myself steering a sturdy research vessel into uncharted water, scanning the depths for whales and hidden reefs. The dream lasts only a heartbeat before I tuck the stick behind my belt like a sword, just in case the day demands bravery, and hurry after Mia. We pass the old pier, its warped planks sun-washed and salt-scarred. Mr. Riley, the fisherman, is there already, whistling a tune I don't recognize, his nets draped over the rail like giant cobwebs. He gives us a toothy grin, one corner of his mouth tilting higher than the other. "Morning, little explorers," he says, voice raspy from years of salt and wind. "See any treasure yet?" "Loads," Mia replies without slowing. She twirls, once, arms wide, indicating that everything from the tiniest shell to the broad sweep of sky counts as treasure. Mr. Riley chuckles, adjusts his cap, and returns to mending a hole in the net, a spider patient with its own handiwork. A few yards farther, the boardwalk begins, its planks drumming under our sneakers. A breeze picks up loose sand and whirls it into miniature cyclones that dance across the boards before dissipating. I watch one swirl around Mia's ankles, catch the hem of her skirt, and let go again. She doesn't notice. She's busy describing, to me, in gleeful detail, how today she will paint a seahorse mural on the side of the art room supply cabinet if Ms. Turner will only let her. I'll mix turquoise and lavender, she says. So the seahorse looks like it's made of twilight instead of scales. That sounds more expensive than paint we actually own, I tease. Then I'll use crayons, she decides. Or chalk, or seaweed if I have to. Color will find a way. Her conviction is contagious. I nod, imagining the hallway brightened. By her seahorse, students pausing beside it the way tourists stop at famous fountains, tossing their worries into the spirals of its tail. We reach the point where the boardwalk gives way to packed dirt, and a small wooden sign welcomes us to the Coral Bay Sand Dune Conservation Area. Grandma helped plant that sign last summer during a community cleanup. I remember holding the ladder steady while she hammered the last nail, her wrist steady, despite her age. The sign reminds walkers to stay on the designated trail so the dunes can flourish, and also reminds me that my grandmother, though gentle, is a pillar of our town. The sort of person who leaves sturdy proofs of her care wherever she can. Just past the sign sits an old picnic table warped by sun and spray. Every morning, rain or shine, we pause there to share something we're grateful for. It started as one of Grandma's small rituals to keep hearts polished, and now it's woven into our routine. Mia scrambles onto the tabletop, crosses her legs, and closes her eyes, letting the wind toss her curls. I'm grateful, she begins solemnly, for tide pools that never run out of secrets and for having an older brother who knows when to let me run ahead. Her words land on me like warm sand. My gratitude, when it comes, feels simpler but no less true. I'm grateful for morning light, I say, because it reminds me there's always a new page to write on. We tap our foreheads together, in silent agreement, a pact invisible to everyone else, but stronger than any parchment seal. With the ritual complete, we slide off the table and continue, aware now of how time nudges us forward. Up ahead, the lighthouse white bell tower of Coral Bay Elementary peeks over a ridge. The distant bell rings its first warning peal, echoing across water and dunes alike. Students appear along various paths, their conversations floating on the air. Debates about baseball scores, arguments over comic book heroes, laughter that sounds like wind chimes. The smell of chalk dust mingled with seaweed drifts faintly toward us, and suddenly the day feels as though it has kicked into gear. We quicken our pace, but not so fast that we can't greet the dune birds perched on fence posts or avoid stepping on the burrows of ghost crabs that dot the path like tiny doorways. When a particularly large wave crashes offshore, droplets travel all the way to the dunes, lightly peppering our faces. Mia shrieks with delight. I wipe water from my eyelashes and feel awake in a way no alarm clock could match. At the school gate, we meet Oliver Clark, my best friend and future co-captain of our imaginary marine research crew. He's balancing an enormous stack of library books, coral reef field guides, a thick atlas of shellfish, and a novel about time-traveling dolphins, his latest obsession. He sees the driftwood tucked behind my belt and nods approvingly. "Weapon or scientific instrument?" he asks. "Whichever the mission requires," I answer, and we bump fists. Mia darts into the cluster of younger kids lining up outside Mrs. Petal's classroom. She turns back once, flashing me a grin so wide it nearly lifts her off the ground. "Remember to breathe if the day gets too loud," she calls before disappearing through the door in a blur of pink backpack and purpose. Inside my own classroom, the walls smell faintly of dry erase markers and sun-baked paper. Ms. Hart, our homeroom teacher, stands by the window watering a potted aloe and humming softly. She greets me by name, glances out at the ocean view behind me, and says, "New wave sets today. Must be a good omen." I nod, sliding into my seat, still feeling the echo of gull cries in my ears. Before lessons begin, I take a moment to pull Grandma's lemon muffin from my lunch pouch. The sweet citrus aroma envelops me like a promise. I break the muffin in half and pass the bigger portion to Oliver. He accepts it with the solemnity of a treaty signing. We share the first bite just as the second bell rings, the flavor bright and sharp as morning sun on water. Math class arrives, and our teacher reviews fractions, but my mind wanders to the way currents split around a rock jetty, half rushing north, half sliding south, both parts still belonging to the same body of sea. Science class follows, and each description of plankton drifting in sunlight feels like a mirror of my own drifting thoughts. At recess, I walk to the fence line where I can just barely see the glint of the lighthouse. Two pelicans glide in perfect formation against the horizon, wingtips nearly touching. I wonder if they take turns leading, swapping positions when one grows tired, the way I secretly hope Mia and I will trade strengths as life grows more complicated. The morning passes in. Increments of chalk dust and whispered conversations and the scraping of chair legs against linoleum, yet no matter how ordinary each minute might appear on its own, The entire mosaic glows with the shimmer of that earlier beach light, salt and sunrise embedded in every edge. When the lunch bell finally rings, I feel a tug in my chest, a compass, needle tugging homeward. Not because the cottage is only a short walk away, but because I know Mia is somewhere on the other side of the building, probably describing her lavender turquoise seahorse to anyone who will listen. The thought makes the cafeteria line seem less crowded, the chatter less harsh, the fluorescent lights less glaring. Everything softens once I remember that the same sea breeze flows through all of us, even here, even now. I carry my tray to a window seat and watch gulls swoop in lazy arcs above the playground. Their calls mingle with the clatter of trays and the squeak of sneakers. Below the window, a line of sea oaks bends in unison, leaves flashing silver green, hinting at the afternoon's possibilities. Perhaps calm, perhaps windy, perhaps both. I take a bite of sandwich and close my eyes just long enough to hear the hush of waves behind all the ordinary sounds. A secret layer of ocean lullaby spinning underneath the busier melody of school life. Every morning by the shore reminds me that two worlds can exist side by side without colliding. One of bells and schedules and timetables, and one of tides and gulls and driftwood swords. I belong to both, and so does Mia. And so, in some deep sense, does everyone who has ever woken to the hum of possibility wrapped in sea-scented air. The trick, I think, is simply to notice the seam where the worlds meet, and to keep walking it, steady as a lighthouse beam, one fresh start after another. Chapter 3. An Uneasy Silence. I wake before the gulls have even begun their morning arguments, stirred not by the salty breeze that usually flirts through the curtains, but by a stillness so complete it feels brittle, as though the air itself might shatter if I breathe too loudly. My digital clock glows 5:37 a.m., late for Grandma Rose, who is normally 2 pancakes ahead of the sun by now. For a moment, I lie in bed and listen, convincing myself that in the next heartbeat I'll hear the clink of her favorite spatula against the skillet or her off-key humming of sea shanties. Nothing. No hiss of coffee percolating, no floorboard squeak in the hallway, no warm vanilla blueberry perfume drifting under my door. Only the hush of an ocean holding its breath beyond the window. Beside me, Mia sleeps on, curled into a loose comma, one arm flung over her stuffed turtle. I ease out of bed, treading lightly across the cold planks. The usual creaky board outside. Our room stays silent, as if even the cottage has agreed to keep its voice down. Down the hallway, I pass the gallery of seashell mobiles Grandma helped us string last winter. Today they don't tap one another. They hang motionless, glassy eyes of small fish suspended in time. The hush follows me into the kitchen, where dawn's first light should be catching dust motes in golden nets. Instead, the room sits in gray shadow. The enamel stove is dark. The cast iron pan on the counter is cold to the touch. No batter bowl, no whisk, no syrup bottle waiting like a loyal dog beside 3 chipped plates. Only a note of absence I can almost hear. "Grandma?" I call, softly at first, then again, louder, words sounding foreign in the padded quiet. My voice skids along the walls and disappears. Her bedroom door stands half open. I nudge it with my knuckles, expecting at any second to see her tying up her hair or thumbing through the tide chart she keeps on her bedside table. Instead, I find her still in bed, propped on one elbow but barely upright, the floral quilt bunched at her waist like a crumpled wave. Her silver hair, always braided neatly before dawn, fans across the pillow in disarray. A newspaper lies unread on her lap, headline blurred by an upturned pair of spectacles. Her eyes flicker toward me, pupils wide, unfocused, as though I am happening very far away. She tries to smile, managing a tremor at the corner of her mouth. "Good morning, sailor," she whispers, the words light as foam. The effort seems to drain her. Her shoulders sink back against the pillow. I cross the room in 3 strides. Up close, I see a thin sheen of sweat on her temples. Her skin carries the pale translucence of sea glass in moonlight. I reach for her wrist, count pulses that come, slow, then stutter, then slow again. "Did you take your medicine?" I ask, trying to sound casual, grown up, unafraid. She nods, maybe yes, maybe simply trying to reassure me. A sharp gust rattles the window and I jump. It isn't the wind that unnerves me. It's the way the house itself seems to swallow sound, how every board and nail stands stiff, listening. The hush is no longer peaceful. It presses on my ears, an invisible hand. Footsteps patter in the hall. Mia appears, blanket draped around, her shoulders like a cloak. Her face crumples the instant she sees Grandma. "Is she sick?" she whispers, as though volume might make things worse. "I'm okay, little starfish," Grandma murmurs, but her voice cracks, 2 syllables breaking, like thin ice. She tries to push herself upright, her arms buckle. Something inside me clenches tight. Mia's eyes brim. She grips my sleeve. "What do we do?" I remember the emergency numbers taped to the fridge, the list Grandma made after she slipped on the pier last spring. But phones feel slow, clumsy. Images flash in quick succession. Mrs. Delgado's flower shop next door, her ever-charged cordless phone, the ambulance station only 6 blocks away. Action feels easier than thought. Stay with her, I tell Mia, though her small hand is still welded to my arm. Talk to her. I'll get help. I sprint down the hall, footfalls landing louder than I intend, as if sound has finally found permission to exist. In the kitchen, I grab the phone, punch 911, then freeze. Dial tone only, no service. Power's on. The outage must be the handset. My pulse drums in my throat. I dart outside, barefoot, the bluff wind slicing my ankles. Mrs. Delgado's shop, really. A squat salmon-pink cottage bursting with bougainvillea lies 50 steps away. Each step slaps the boardwalk, yet seems slow, syrupy. When I bang on her door, my knuckles bloom white. Lights flick on. Mrs. Delgado appears wrapped in a robe patterned with hibiscus petals, mascara smudged beneath one eye. Leo? What? Grandma, I gasp. She can't stand. She's wrong. Words tumble out. She catches the gist. To her credit, she asks no questions. She snatches her phone, taps 3 digits, rattles off our address in brisk, clipped Spanish and English, voice slicing. The dawn. Go, she tells me, already slipping on sneakers. We run back to the cottage. Inside, Mia sits on the bed, cradling Grandma's hand, lips moving in a whisper of comfort. Grandma's eyes flutter closed and open again, each blink slower. Within minutes, though time has lost its ruler, sirens, whine in the distance, a lonely wail curling over the dunes. Red lights streak the window glass. 2 EMTs sweep in, trailing the smell of disinfectant and diesel. Questions volley through the hush. Symptoms, duration, meds. They radio vitals, strap sensors, lift Grandma gently to a stretcher. The Velcro rip of the blood pressure cuff feels obscene in the sacred quiet. Mia asks if she can ride with Grandma. Policy says no. Tears well, but she nods bravely, clutching Grandma's scarf the EMT has pressed into her hand. I sign a clipboard, with fingers that barely obey. The stretcher wheels clack over the threshold. Just before the EMTs load her into the ambulance, Grandma finds my eyes. Hers are watery but fierce. She mouths something. Take care. Then doors slam. The siren sparks to life, and the vehicle shrinks down the lane, red pulse fading, swallowed by morning mist. Silence rushes back, but it's no longer brittle. It's cavernous. The cottage stands hollow as a seashell you press to your ear, expecting whispers of the tide. Only now it offers nothing at all. Mrs. Delgado squeezes my shoulder, promises to check on us later, then slips out, her perfume of jasmine lingering a moment before dissolving. Mia and I remain in Grandma's room because moving elsewhere feels like betrayal. The quilt retains her warmth, a faint map of where she lay. I smooth a crease, not sure why. On the nightstand, the newspaper headline finally resolves, "Local regatta returns this Saturday." A photo of sunlit sails mocks the shadow in the room. Mia's shoulders shake. I sit beside her, draw her into the crook of my arm. The hush amplifies our breathing, one ragged, one thin, and the faint tick of the cuckoo clock prowling down the hall. Every tick begs a question I'm afraid to ask. What if she doesn't come back? What if blueberry pancake mornings become myth? I think of the lighthouse just visible through Grandma's bedroom window, its lantern extinguished by day but steadfast, waiting. I promise myself I'll be that steady for Mia. I will learn how. But for now, in this uneasy silence, I simply hold my sister and let the quiet say what we cannot. That something precious has wavered, that the shoreline of our life has been redrawn overnight, and the tide is coming in fast. Chapter 4. Calling for Aid. The silence finally breaks when Mrs. Delgado's voice slices through it like a rescue flare. "Emergency services, please." Yes. Patient is an elderly female, late 60s, conscious but lethargic, possible cardiac event or severe exhaustion. Address is 17 Seafoam Lane, Coral Bay, the cottage with blue shutters. Hurry. I stand beside her at the kitchen phone, shivering in bare feet on the tile. She presses the speaker against her ear, calm but urgent, answering questions I can't even hear. Her free hand squeezes my shoulder. It anchors me long enough to remember I'm not just watching this happen, I'm part of it. Focus, I tell myself. Checklist. Unlock the front gate. Clear a path to Grandma's room. Keep Mia steady. I bolt back down the hallway. The articled hush feels thinner now, pierced by the tremor of action. In Grandma's room, Mia is exactly where I left her, perched. On the edge of the mattress, small fingers stroking the back of Grandma's hand. She looks up, eyes shimmering but resolute. "Help is coming," I say, voice steadier than before. "We need to make room." Together we shift the quilt, nudge the footlocker aside, and roll Grandma's nightstand a few inches away from the bed. Every scrape of furniture on wood sounds like a flare gun in the silence, but we keep going. Grandma tries to protest. Don't fuss, Leo. Yet even that gentle murmur drains her. She sinks into the pillow, eyelids fluttering like tired moths. I race to the front gate and swing it wide. The hinges shriek, echoing down the bluff. Back inside, I fetch the weathered green first aid box from the hall closet. Bandages, aspirin, the little blood pressure cuff Grandma taught me to use on sick seagulls. I don't know if any of it will matter, but doing something matters. Minutes stretch like saltwater taffy. Then, at last, the distant whir of an engine threads the air, followed by a rising siren. The sound builds and bends around the dunes, swelling until blue and red strobes wash across our windows like storm-tossed light. I dash outside again. The ambulance crunches to a stop on our gravel drive, tires spitting stones. 2 EMTs jump. Down. One tall and wiry, the other compact with a clipboard already in hand. Their uniforms smell of rain-soaked canvas and disinfectant. You the caller? The tall one asks. I nod, unable to find my voice. Patient name? Rose Harper. My grandmother. She's in the back bedroom. She couldn't stand. They follow me, boots thudding, radios crackling. The compact EMT badge reading H. Quinn speaks over his shoulder into a mic. Unit 43 on scene, female 68. Possible CVA or cardiac, vitals pending. Inside the bedroom, the EMTs transition from strangers to choreographed professionals. In under 10 seconds, they've clipped a pulse oximeter to Grandma's finger, wrapped a blood pressure cuff around her arm, laid electrodes on her chest. The monitor chirps, heart rate 48, SpO2 91%. I don't fully understand, but the numbers feel heavy. Quinn shines a penlight into Grandma's pupils. Mrs. Harper, can you squeeze my fingers? Her hand closes like a wavering tide. Slow, then weaker still. He nods once, expression unreadable. Possible bradycardia, he mutters to his partner. BP 80/55. Let's move. They slide a transfer board under her, lift in a practiced heave, and position her on the stretcher. Grandma's eyes flick to mine, trying to reassure me, but fear lurks behind the pale blue. Mia presses the frayed corner of Grandma's scarf into her palm, a talisman, and whispers, "For later." Quinn glances at me. One of you can ride up front. The other will need alternate transport. Policy. I'll ride, I blurt. Please. Mia's lower lip trembles. I'll go with Mrs. Delgado, she decides, though the words sound like she's signing a treaty with a storm. Mrs. Delgado, still in her hibiscus robe but now wearing tennis shoes, appears, keys jingling. "I'll be right behind you." "Niños, I've called your school and my niece at the cafe. We're covered." The EMTs wheel Grandma through the narrow hall. Picture frames tilt as the gurney brushes them. Snapshots of birthday cakes and beach picnics rattling like worried spectators. Outside, morning has advanced. Gulls shriek overhead, offended by flashing lights that compete with the sunrise. They load the gurney. Doors slam. Quinn gestures me into the passenger seat. I climb in, knees knocking. From this height, our cottage looks fragile, like a model made of balsa wood and hope. Sirens up. The driver, Badge S. McNally, guns the engine. Gravel spits, tires bite asphalt, and we jolt forward. McNally hands me a headset. "Talk to your gran if you can," she says. Voice recognition helps orientation. A rear-facing camera. Feed pops onto a dashboard screen. Grandma lies strapped in, oxygen mask fogging with each breath. "Grandma, it's me," I say through the mic, hoping my words thread through cables and radios into the tiny speaker near her ear. "We're flying down Shoreline Road. Mia's safe. Remember the starfish we saved last summer? We'll go check on it again soon." Quinn's voice filters in. BP holding, but heart rate dipping to 46. The driver flicks the siren to a higher wail, lights strobing across jagged coastal cliffs. We pass the farmer's market, the shuttered bait shop, the pier where nets hang like ghosts, each landmark streaking behind us in flashing red-blue déjà vu. I give the dispatcher my best answers to rapid-fire questions. Allergies, none. Medications. Low-dose aspirin, fish oil supplements. Prior conditions. A mild stroke 5 years ago. My words come out clipped, unnatural. Beside me, the dashboard clock clicks from 6:02 to 6:03. Time becomes something I can measure but not trust. At last, the hospital towers into view, its glass facade catching sunrise like a blade. We swing beneath the ER awning. A trauma team. Waits. Scrubs mint green under fluorescent lights. Doors burst open. Grandma disappears into a corridor of shouting acronyms. Code Gray, IV line, EKG. Phrases that sound like puzzle pieces flung onto a table. McNally escorts me to a registration alcove. A nurse with tired eyes hands me a clipboard. Forms blur, pen trembling. Under relationship to patient, I write grandson guardian, for now. When done, they shepherd me to a waiting area painted faux calm in muted aquamarine. I sink into a plastic chair that squeaks under the sudden weight of everything. Across the room, a vending machine hums. The guy next to me jabs at his phone. Another clutches a coffee cup with both hands like it's the last warm thing in the universe. Monitors beep in unseen rooms down tiled hallways. Occasional intercom bursts fracture the hush. 5 eternal minutes pass before Mia and Mrs. Delgado arrive. Mia barrels into my lap, scarf still balled in her fist. Her cheeks are blotchy but dry. She's out of tears for the moment. Mrs. Delgado slides into the seat beside us, wrapping an arm around both our shoulders. A living parenthesis. A triage nurse appears. Family of Rose Harper? We stand in unison. She explains. Initial tests show unstable blood pressure, arrhythmia, dehydration. They've drawn labs, started fluids, ordered a CT to rule out stroke. Serious but in progress, her eyes say, though her mouth shapes gentler words. She allows us to see Grandma for 2 minutes, no touching equipment. We shuffle down a hall washed in antiseptic light, past rooms labeled only by numbers that somehow feel like fates. Grandma's door slides aside. She lies pale against starched sheets, wires snaking across her chest, IV dripping clear liquid into the crook of her elbow. Her eyelids flutter at our approach. I squeeze Mia's hand, remembering the rule about equipment, so we stand close, but not too close. I lean in. We're here, Grandma. Mia, Mrs. Delgado, me. They're taking good care of you. Her lips twitch. I think she tries to say home or maybe love, but the oxygen mask garbles it. Mia lifts the scarf. We brought this, she whispers. The nurse permits her to tuck the fabric next to Grandma's arm, a bridge of hibiscus print between hope and medicine. Burly orderlies arrive to wheel Grandma to imaging. Our visit is over almost before it begins. Back in the waiting area, the 3 of us huddle. I realize the lemon muffins Grandma baked yesterday still sit untouched on the kitchen counter. The thought spears me, an ordinary detail now carrying the weight of a relic. Mrs. Delgado fishes coins from her robe pocket, quarters, and a stray peso, and buys hot cocoa from the vending machine. Steam fogs Mia's glasses. For the first time in an hour she smiles, thin as the first line of dawn, but real. I tilt my head against the wall, listening to the distant churn of generators, wondering how long tests take, how long hearts can stall, before horizons shrink. Then I recall something Grandma always says when storms roll ashore. Sometimes the lighthouse needs a lighthouse. Right now she is the storm-tossed ship, the fog-bound sailor. And we, 3 figures clutching cocoa and each other, must become the beam that cuts the darkness wide, calling her safely back to shore. So we wait. Hour folded into hour, sirens. Arriving, loved ones leaving, the coastline of our lives redrawn again and again by every swinging ER door. But the signal remains, unwavering, bright, encoded in scarf fibers, lemon muffins, and a little sister's resolve. Grandma, we are the lighthouse now. Follow us home. Chapter 5. The Empty Cottage. The ambulance has vanished beyond the curve of Shoreline Road, and the echo of its siren dissolves into the hiss of distant surf. Mrs. Delgado's car idles beside the curb, its engine ticking softly as it cools. She offers to stay, but Mia and I shake our heads in tandem. We need the house, not just walls and a roof, but the proof that something of our ordinary life still exists. Mrs. Delgado leaves us with a squeeze of the shoulder, a grocery bag of microwave dinners, and instructions to call the cafe if we feel the silence creeping too close. The front gate swings on its tired hinges, whining a protest that Grandma would normally soothe with a dab of grease and a hummed lullaby. I let the gate complain. Tonight the cottage is allowed to be ornery. Gravel crunches beneath our sneakers until we reach the porch steps. Mia pauses, resting her palm on the salt-rough railing the way a sailor touches the mast for luck. Her shoulders rise and fall in a sigh too old for a girl of 8. Inside, late morning sun slants through the windows, turning airborne dust into ghostly confetti. Everything is exactly where we left it. Grandma's knitting needles stabbed into a half-finished scarf, yesterday's newspaper folded to the tide chart page, 2 blueberry pancakes on a plate under a mesh cover like relics in a museum of happier hours. The clock above the stove ticks on, oblivious to the breach in our routine. Mia toes off her shoes and tiptoes to the kitchen table. She reaches for a pancake, then stops, hand hovering as though she's afraid to disturb the memory trapped beneath the mesh. I lift the cover, slice one pancake in half, and hand her a piece. She nibbles the edge, cold, syrupless, but chews with reverence, as if tasting a message smuggled from Grandma's vanished morning. "I'll make lunch," I declare, heatless bravado filling the space where certainty used to live. I rummage through cupboards, canned soup, dry macaroni, a half-empty jar of olives. None of it resembles Grandma's comfort food, seasoned with stories and salt air. I settle on tomato soup because the label promises it's ready in 3 minutes. I empty the tin into a pot. The glutinous plop sounds indecently loud. When I twist the stove knob, the burner clicks twice, then blooms blue. Something at least still obeys. Mia pads into the living room. I hear the creak of the old rocker, the one that moans like a gull whenever Grandma leans back to knit. Now it rocks by itself under Mia's slight weight, lamenting each shift. Over the bubble of soup, I catch her whispering the lighthouse poem Grandma taught us. One beam for the stranger, one beam for the friend. But her voice thins before the final line. I ladle soup into 2 chipped bowls and carry them to the coffee table. The steam fogs Mia's glasses. She blinks and smiles a polite thank you, more guest than resident. We sip in near silence. Without Grandma's commentary, her delightful digressions about tides or pelicans, each spoonful feels like an echo rather than a meal. After dishes, chores line up like anxious soldiers begging for orders. I strip Grandma's sheets, Mia insists they smell like lilacs and refuses to help, and feed them to the washing machine. I water her spider plant, though I'm not sure how much is too much. I end up dribbling half the cup because my hand shakes. The house hums with mechanical life. Washer, fridge, the faint buzz of the porch light we forgot to turn off at dawn. Yet every sound emphasizes the absence of the one voice we need most. Mid-afternoon sunlight crawls across the floorboards, illuminating details I've never noticed. The hairline crack in a windowsill, the pattern where Grandma's rocking chair has worn the varnish thin. Mia curls in the bay window niche with her sketchbook, drawing minute variations of starfish as though perfect anatomy might conjure Grandma home. I sit across from her, sorting unopened mail, electric bill, community newsletter, a coupon for garden mulch. Nothing urgent, nothing helpful. At 3:17 p.m. the phone rings. Both of us freeze. The shrill tone lands like a pebble in still water, ripples racing outward. I grab the receiver. Harper Residence, I manage. A nurse introduces herself. Tara, ICU. Her voice professional honey. She explains that Grandma's vitals have stabilized with fluids and medication. They're monitoring her heart rhythm overnight and scheduling more tests in the morning. She uses words like cautiously optimistic and rest is critical. I cling to each syllable like rope, mentally knotting them into something strong enough to pull us through the evening. Mia watches, my face seeking clues. I cover the receiver and mouth. She's okay for now. Relief loosens her posture, but only a degree. Hope is a fragile muscle we haven't used enough to keep flexed. After the call, the cottage feels fractionally less empty, as if Tara's voice left a candle burning in the hallway. Still, dusk approaches faster than usual, rushing the sky through bronze and rose into indigo. I switch on lamps one by one, bathing rooms in small, stubborn circles of light. The bulbs buzz. The ocean roars beyond the bluff. The distance between those sounds is filled with everything we don't say. Dinner is microwave macaroni that emerges rubbery at the edges. We eat on the couch, watching a nature documentary about migrating whales. The narrator's baritone speaks of journeys across thousands of miles. I wonder how far signals of love can travel. Hospital corridors, saline drips, sleeping brains. Farther, I decide, or none of this makes sense. Bedtime routine becomes a negotiation with nostalgia. Mia insists we read The Secret Sea, the picture book Grandma always used to tuck us in. I read aloud, stumbling on familiar phrases now weighted with memory. Mia interrupts to correct my cadence, recreating Grandma's lilting emphasis on brave, currents, and hidden coves. When we finish, she holds the book to her chest as if it has a heartbeat. I tuck her in, smoothing the quilt that still smells faintly of last week's lavender wash. Before I turn off the lamp, she asks, "Will the house forget her voice if she's gone too long?" No, I promise, though the question slices deep. Walls remember, so do we. She nods, accepts the answer for tonight, and drifts into uneasy sleep, fingers curled around the scarf she snuck from Grandma's bureau. I linger, listening to her breaths syncopate with the distant tide, until I'm certain the rhythm will hold. In the dim kitchen, I brew chamomile tea, Grandma's remedy for runaway thoughts. I burn my tongue on the first sip, grateful for pain. That proves I'm still here. The cottage, too, seems to breathe. Rafters settling, fridge cycling, wind riffling the shingles. I walk room to room, touching objects like checkpoints in a labyrinth, the seashell mobiles, the lemon-yellow mixing bowl, the lighthouse painting whose beam glints even in low light. Each contact sparks a micro-memory. Grandma whistling, scolding, laughing. The house is not empty, I realize. It is crowded with echoes. What's missing is the new layer she adds each day, the fresh coat of story that keeps the structure alive. At the back door, I step onto the porch. The night air is sharp, with brine. The Milky Way spills across the sky, careless with abundance. The lighthouse on the northern cliff sweeps its beam in measured arcs, steady, dutiful. I lift my hand and wave, a childish gesture meant for no one, or perhaps for the universe itself. In the glass pane of the door, my reflection hovers. A boy, in oversized responsibility, hair tousled by a day that started ages ago. For the first time, I let exhaustion settle onto my shoulders. It feels heavy, yet honest. Before heading to bed, I write a note and tape it to the refrigerator where Grandma can't miss it when she comes home. Soup in the freezer, flowers watered. We kept the lights warm for you. The words wobble, but they stand. I add a tiny drawn lighthouse at the bottom, its beam stretching farther than paper allows. Finally, I slide beneath my blankets. The mattress seems too wide, the room too still, but my eyelids are sandbags. As consciousness ebbs, I imagine Grandma in her hospital room, drifting toward rest under sterile light. I picture our cottage as she would, a candle at a window, a beacon cut from ordinary things, soup cans, laundry soap, mismatched bowls, glowing against the dark. Somewhere between one breath and the next, I slip into sleep. And though the cottage remains physically empty, I dream it filling, first with the smell of blueberry pancakes, then with sea shanties hummed off key, finally with Grandma's warm laughter rising like sun through fog, promising that absence is only a tide. It recedes, yes, but it also returns. Chapter 6. Hospital Watch. I sit in a chair that is harder than any chair should legally be, and I try to convince my knees they are not numb. Across from me, Mia swings her legs like a metronome that can't find the beat. The hospital's family. Waiting room is painted a thoughtful shade of pale seawater, someone's idea of calm, but the fluorescent lights bleach it into lifeless chalk. A television bolted high in the corner plays a muted cooking show. A chef flambés something joyful, while closed caption words march across the screen with ruthless cheer. Sugar, vanilla, delight. It feels obscene. The clock above the nurse's station says 9:11 a.m. We have been here 3 hours. Though in hospital time that might equal 3 weeks or 3 lifetimes. No one provides a conversion chart. I clutch the visitor badge clipped to my collar. Harper Leo Minor. Below my name in bright red letters, it says limited access. The words feel like a verdict. Mia leans into my shoulder. What do arrhythmia and bradycardia mean? I search my brain for the simplest answers. Arrhythmia is when a heartbeat forgets its rhythm. Bradycardia is when it forgets to be fast enough. Can hearts remember again? Sometimes. I try to inject confidence I'm not sure I own. Doctors can teach them. Mia sips the last of her hot cocoa. The paper cup makes a sad, hollow crackle. Then she reaches into her pocket and pulls out 3 seashells she smuggled from the cottage. She lines them on the chair arm. Small, smaller, smallest, like a squad of silent guardians. A nurse wheels a whiteboard easel into the hall. On it, she writes the day's date, the charge nurse's name and visiting our rules in neat blue letters. I watch the curve of her hand form each capital, amazed at how normal tasks can survive in a corridor where lives keep tilting. At 9:37 a.m., a man in rumpled scrubs approaches with a clipboard. His ID badge flashes Dr. Amir Patel, Cardiology. He looks exactly like someone who has lived inside neon lighting for decades. Faint circles under empathetic eyes? Family of Rose Harper? He asks softly. We rise in unison, though our heads barely reach his shoulder. Mrs. Delgado stands too. She returned after dropping off soup at the cafe, refusing to leave us alone with the hush. I'm Dr. Patel, he says. Your grandmother is resting. The CT scan shows no signs of stroke, but her heart rate is still low. We're giving medication to steady the rhythm and fluids to help her blood pressure. He crouches, so his eyes are level with ours. Right now, the biggest prescription is time and monitoring. Mia gnaws her lip. Will she come home for pancakes? The question splinters my composure. But Dr. Patel nods as though morning meals are within his jurisdiction. That's the goal. First, we make sure her heart gets its rhythm back. It's like teaching a song to someone who forgot the melody. He explains pacer pads stuck to Grandma's chest, stickers that can jolt the heart if it slips too far off beat. He says most patients never need the jolt, but the hospital likes to be prepared. I nod until my neck aches from agreement, until the words pile up into a fragile scaffold around hope. Dr. Patel promises another update after rounds and disappears down the corridor. Clipboard tucked beneath one arm like a reluctant surfboard. Takir. AM shift change traffic picks up. Nurses wheel computers on skinny poles. IV bags sway like transparent jellyfish. And orderlies push linen carts that smell faintly of bleach and tired cotton. The bustle is hypnotic. I catch myself matching my breaths to the rattle of wheels across linoleum. Mia announces she must stretch her imagination. Translation: draw something before her thoughts burst. We find a tiny alcove with a child-sized table scarred by eras of coloring. She spreads paper and colored pencils provided by a volunteer cart, then begins sketching Grandma's cottage, but with one revision. Instead of a roof, the house sprouts a lighthouse tower, its beam cutting through clouds shaped like stethoscopes. While she draws, I wander to the vending machines. Behind glass panels sit rows of candy bars and neon drinks, regimented like troopers behind enemy lines. I buy a pack of pretzels and a bottle of apple juice, both tasting of artificial reassurance. On the return walk, I pass a family holding hands in a tight huddle. Someone sobs once, sharp as a gull's cry. I divert my eyes, but the sound wedges into me. Back at the table, Mia colors the lighthouse beam gold. "If Grandma is sleeping," she says, not looking up, "do you think she can still see light in her dreams?" "Yes," I tell her, "especially if we keep making it bright." Noon, an electronic chime announces visiting minutes. Nurse Tara, same calm voice from last night, appears with fresh purple gloves. She motions us down a corridor that smells of antiseptic and something sweeter, maybe orchards trapped in sanitizer. At room 212B, she taps a code. The door slides open, and we enter a hush thick enough to taste. Grandma lies propped slightly upright. The pacer pads peek from beneath her hospital gown like oversized bandages. The monitor above her head draws green mountains across a black valley. Heartbeats ascending and falling in disciplined intervals. 78 beats per minute. Almost normal, I think. Her eyelids flutter. When they lift, recognition blooms slow but sure. "My sailors," she rasps. We can't touch the wires, but Mia places her hand near Grandma's on the blanket, fingers barely grazing cloth. "I'm drawing lighthouses," she whispers. "They're working." Grandma's lips curve a fraction. I can see the glow. Nurse Tara checks the IV, scribbles vitals, and grants us 5 more minutes. Those minutes swell, thick and sacred. Grandma asks for news from the sea in a thread of a voice. I describe the tide pools we passed yesterday, exaggerating how a crab waved at us. Mia reports that Mr. Riley's nets caught a starfish doing yoga. Grandma chuckles, tiny, but a spark nonetheless, and her oxygen cannula trembles with the laugh. When Nurse Tara returns, we surrender our closeness. Grandma's eyes close again, lids like thin shells settling over fragile pearls. As we leave, I glance at the monitor. 76, 75, steady descent into rest, but steady all the same. Afternoon drift. Back in the waiting room, time stops pretending to pass normally. Chairs fill, empty, refill with new faces. A postal clerk clutching rosary beads. A teenager spinning a basketball on one finger. A construction worker asleep with his helmet cradled like an egg. Mia dozes curled against my side. I study the speckled linoleum, grouping flecks of gray into constellations. Above the nurse station, the television has switched to a nature documentary. Whales again, or maybe the same one from last night. Sound still muted. I imagine the narrator saying, "Migration requires patience and unknown currents. But whales trust the map stitched into their bones. I wonder what maps humans carry. At 3:45 p.m., Tara brings news. Grandma's labs look encouraging. Magnesium low but correcting. They'll keep her overnight in telemetry. Maybe step down to a regular room tomorrow if the heart rate behaves. The word encouraging drips golden into my bloodstream. Mrs. Delgado must return to her cafe's afternoon rush. She extracts a promise. That will call if we even think about needing anything, then floats away in a cloud of floral perfume and clacking keychains. Her absence leaves a dent in the air. A volunteer named Mr. Nguyen rolls in a cart stacked with donated books and puzzle sheets. He teaches Mia the Vietnamese word for patience, Kien Han. She repeats it until it feels like a spell that might anchor the room to the earth. Evening hush. Dinner in the cafeteria. Lukewarm chicken noodle soup for me. Grilled cheese for Mia. We sit at a formica table near a window that reflects nothing but fluorescent glare. The cafeteria workers wear hairnets and soft eyes that never quite meet ours. Their smiles feel like bandages, gentle but temporary. When we return upstairs, the waiting room is almost empty. A janitor mops methodically, the chemical scent sharp and starched. Mia resumes coloring. I attempt homework, but the numbers blur into restless fish on the page. At 8 more p.m., Tara appears again. Visiting hour if you'd like, she says, voice softened by the late shift. This time the hallway lights are dimmed to moons nestled in the ceiling. In Grandma's room, only the monitor glows. The green peaks pulse at a respectable 82. Grandma sleeps, lips parted in even breaths. I notice someone has braided a small section of her silver hair, probably Nurse Tara, and that simple braid feels like a promise of ordinary care. Mia sets her drawing on the bedside tray. The lighthouse beam practically radiates. I tuck the blanket under Grandma's arm the way she used to tuck us in. Even asleep, she seems to sense the gesture. Her fingers curl as though holding invisible yarn. We stay until Tara taps her watch. Out in the corridor, Mia whispers, her heartbeat looked like mountains. I nod. Strong mountains, I say. Night. Watch Tara finds blankets and 2 narrow cots in a side room usually meant for on-call residents. The sheets smell of industrial detergent and faint lavender. I text Mom's old flip phone. She's 3 time zones away on a deployment shift. Unreachable, but maybe checking messages. Grandma in hospital, stable. We're okay. I add a lighthouse emoji it probably won't display. Mia falls asleep mid-sentence, whispering that tomorrow she'll add seagulls to her drawing. I lie awake longer, tracing the cracks in the ceiling paint. Somewhere a monitor alarms, then quiets after hurried footsteps. Elevators ding, pages blare, another baby cries in obstetrics. The hospital is a village that never sleeps, a tide pool of stories swirling under artificial moons. Eventually, fatigue welds my eyelids shut. In my dream, I walk the beach at midnight. The real lighthouse has gone dark, but dozens of small ones rise from the sand, toy towers, seashell lamps, each casting a personal beam. I realize they're all Mia's drawings come to life, scattered along the shoreline to guide a single figure in the distance. It's Grandma, walking toward us, steady but unhurried, following the stitched-together path of light. I wake at dawn to Tara's quiet knock. "Good news," she says. "Your grandmother's heart held steady all night. Dr. Patel says if labs stay normal, she'll move to a regular room after breakfast." Mia stirs, eyes blinking at the news. She sits up and presses both hands to her heart, as if syncing her rhythm with Grandma's. Outside the window, the horizon blushes peach, promising a day that might dare to be ordinary again. I stand, stretching cramped muscles, and realize I can feel every beat in my chest. Strong, certain, echoing Grandma's. Hospital watch isn't over, but the night has yielded its harsh edges to morning. A new shift of nurses rustles down the hall, sneakers squeaking like seabirds. The tide of time rolls forward, carrying us, and for the first moment in what feels like ages, the current doesn't scare me. It feels almost like home gaining on us, one heartbeat, one lighthouse beam at a time. Chapter 7. Stepping into Responsibility. I wake to the stubborn chirp of sparrows colonizing the hospital courtyard. Their optimism rings through the half-open window above my cot, daring me to believe the day might cooperate. Sunlight pools on, the linoleum and apricot puddles. Lovely until you remember it's 6 a.m. and you've slept in yesterday's t-shirt. I rub the crease out of my face where the pillow seams branded me, then glance at Mia. She's sprawled on the neighboring cot, curls in riot, mouth ajar in the carefree sleep of someone who trusts her world to stay upright a little while longer. Grandma is officially stable. Her telemetry leads are gone, replaced by a single-finger pulse ox and a blood pressure cuff that inflates every hour like a cranky pufferfish. Dr. Patel says she needs several quiet days of monitoring. Maybe a week of cardiac rehab after that. In medical slang, Grandma is out of the woods but still lying in the tall grass. Translation: the house is ours to run, for days. A week ago that would have sounded like freedom. Now it sounds like a math problem with no teacher in sight. a plan, scribbled on the back of a cafeteria receipt. While Mia keeps watch over Grandma's breakfast tray, oatmeal, half banana, herbal tea, I hunch over a sticky cafeteria table and list everything the next 7 days will require. Food, cupboards half empty, fridge half sad, school, missed 2 days, homework snowballing, laundry, uniforms, towels, grandmas. Linens. Money. The word looms underlined 3 times. I fish $4.17 in coins from my pocket. Yesterday's pretzels and juice cost more than they should have. Conclusion. We need income. Fast, legal, local. Mr. Riley pays kids $5 for bait prep at the pier, but his high season starts next month. Babysitting? Few toddlers roam. Coral Bay's sleepy streets. Lawn work? Possible. But lawns here are mostly drought-tolerant gravel mosaics. My gaze drifts to the gift shop beyond the cafeteria line, shelves glittering with seashell magnets and saltwater taffy. Someone is paid to stock that sugar. Someone sweeps the sand tourist track in. Someone could be me. The job hunt begins. After Grandma dozes off for a mid-morning nap, Mia and I bus home on the coastal loop. Our cottage greets us with flaked paint and silence, like an old dog too tired to wag. I tell Mia to finish her homework, promising popcorn as a reward, then set off down Seashell Avenue armed with nothing but determination and a backpack to hide my nerves. First stop, Dockside Diner. The manager, Mr. Peters, scans me up and down. 11.5 years compressed into 410 of hope. Need help weekends only, he grunts. Minimum age 15 by state law. Strike 1. Second, Coral Bay, gift and tackle. A bell jingles over the door, diffusing the scent of plastic mermaid keychains. The clerk apologizes. Her aunt took on extra shifts. No budget for more hires. Strike 2. I cross the street to Seabreeze Bakery, the one that breathes out cinnamon each dawn. Sun-bleached wood siding, windows scribbled with hot loaves, warm smiles. Inside, metal trays clatter, ovens exhale sugar ghosts, and someone hums off-key to a radio ballad. Behind the counter stands Mrs. Nakamura, apron dusted with flour, hair twisted into an efficient bun. I clear my throat, trying to sound taller. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you need part-time help? I could sweep, wash pans, anything. Her eyes, sharp almond brown, pause mid-inspection. How old? 12 in August, I confess. She wipes her hands on her apron, leaving Perfect fingerprints of flour. Child labor permits? I swallow. I can apply. I only need a few hours after school. My grandmother's in the hospital and I stop, cheeks burning. Pity is not a resume skill. Mrs. Nakamura studies me another heartbeat, then sighs. Dish pit's open. It's loud, wet, and smells like yesterday's frosting. 3-hour shifts, weekdays, under the table until your permit clears. $4 an hour plus bread you can't sell. She extends a floured palm. Deal? My hand flies into hers so fast I nearly spear her with enthusiasm. Deal. Start this afternoon. Bring non-slip shoes and the courage to smell like sourdough forever. Baptism by soap and steam. 4 p.m. I stand at an aluminum sink, half my height. Sheet pans tower beside me like bronze skyscrapers. Rinse, scrub, sanitize, rack. The rhythm becomes a song. Clang, swish, whoosh, clang. Each pan is a verse. Each suds pop a cymbal crash. Steam fogs my glasses, sweat slicks my neck, but a soldiering. Pride swells inside my chest. Halfway through, Mrs. Nakamura slides me a mug of milk and 2 crooked ginger cookies. Break, she orders. We perch on flour sacks. She tells me she inherited this bakery from her grandmother, who kneaded dough until 93. Women with strong hands raise cities, she says, cracking her knuckles like firecrackers. Then, oddly shy, she presses a fresh baguette into my backpack. For your sister, she mutters before marching back to batter. By 7, the sink gleams, pans drip dry, and my wrists throb pleasantly. Mrs. Nakamura counts 8 wrinkled dollars into my palm, more money than I've ever earned myself. Same time tomorrow, she says, shooing me toward the door. Outside, dusk paints the sky mauve. The bills feel like hot coals. I cannot stop smiling, sharing the bread. Mia greets me at the gate, hair wild from the coastal wind. I brandish the baguette like a heroic torch. Her eyes widen. Real bakery bread? For us? Earned with soap and elbow grease, I proclaim, handing her the loaf. She breaks off a chunk, steam still spiraling into the night. We sit on the porch steps, devouring bread and retelling our days, hers filled with fractions and spelling. Quizzes, mine with industrial dish soap and a boss who wields sarcasm like a pastry bag. After bread, I reveal the $8. Mia traces the numbers on the bills as if reading Braille. We should save it, she decides, for soup and laundry soap. I nod, tucking the cash into an empty jelly jar labeled Adventure Fund, a jar once destined for aquarium tickets, now repurposed for survival. I add 2/4 of my own. The coins clink a brave little anthem. The first real budget. At the kitchen table, I draft a spreadsheet on lined paper. Projected earnings. 5 shifts X 3 HRX 4 hour $60 plus day old. Bread, approximate retail value priceless essential expenses per week. Milk, eggs, veggies. $18 laundry tokens. $6 bus fares, hospital visits. $10 emergency buffer. 10 total, $44. Surplus, 16. Not much, but it breathes. Mia decorates the margins with $ seahorses. Money swims, she declares. Night thoughts. In bed, shoulders aching, I stare at the ceiling's faint water stains. Responsibility is heavier than it looks, like carrying a bucket that keeps refilling while you walk. Yet weight can also ground you. With each dish scrubbed, each dollar counted, the world tilts back toward balance. I let my mind drift to Grandma's hospital room, the beep of her monitor, the braid in her silver hair, the half smile when she whispered, "Keep the lighthouse bright." I picture tomorrow's visit, walking in with a contraband croissant hidden in my jacket, her eyes widening at the first buttery bite. Sweet carbohydrates as medical morale. Outside, the ocean pulses, a slow percussion that matches the ache in my arms. I realize I am no longer scared of the quiet cottage. I have keys to it, literal keys in my pocket, figurative keys in the form of soap bubbles, baguettes, and a jelly jar of dog-eared money. Responsibility, it turns out, is not a cage. It is a doorway. You step through because someone has to, and on the other side you find a wider version of yourself, sleeves rolled, ready to carry what needs carrying. I close my eyes and feel the house breathe with me, patient and proud. Tomorrow there will be more pans, more homework, more balancing acts. But tonight, the ledger and my heartbeat share a rhythm, steady, possible, new. Chapter 8. Learning to Provide. I used to think a week was a flimsy thing, 7 paper-thin pages you tore off the calendar without effort. But when you're the one steering the days, each page gains weight. By Wednesday morning, my shoulders register the heft of every chore, every decision, every remember to that Grandma once shouldered without fanfare. Wednesday, the double life begins. I'm up at 5, bleary-eyed but determined, spooning oatmeal into 2 bowls while skimming science notes for the test I missed. Mia pads in and pretends the mush is cafe creme brulee. We clink spoons like silver in a fancy restaurant. Lunch is next. 1 cheddar sandwich apiece, plus a wedge of yesterday's baguette wrapped in wax paper. Before we leave, I tuck an envelope under the sugar jar. 8 single bills labeled bus. Le groceries. In case I don't make it home before the corner shop closes. School is a blur. Ionic bonds, long division, rumors about next month's field trip. My friends notice the flower scent clinging to my hoodie, but I dodge questions with half jokes. The moment the final bell rings, I sprint, literally, to Seabreeze Bakery. Mrs. Nakamura greets me with a nod and an elastic hairnet. Dish pits, all yours, Captain. 3 hours later, I've earned another $12, plus 2-day-old croissants that still taste like Paris to us. My bus transfer expires in 15 minutes. I run so hard the croissants flatten in my backpack. At home, Mia meets me with news. The electricity bill arrived. Due in 10 days, $34.28. We add a bright orange sticky note to the fridge. Pay by 23rd or we camp in the dark. Thursday. Small economics. Bakery again, but Mrs. Nakamura teaches me a new station. Prep corner. I measure flour into huge steel bowls the size of satellite dishes. Count eggs. Whisk milk. She quizzes me on ratios. 4 parts flour, 1 part sugar, pinch of salt. Math class finally feels useful. Between tasks, she slips me a list of produce set to expire. Bruised. Peaches. Overripe bananas. Take what you like, otherwise compost. I load a paper sack with fruit. Visions of banana bread already rising in my head. That evening, Mia and I transform the kitchen into a test kitchen. We mash bananas, add stale baguette cubes, sprinkle brown sugar like confetti. The pudding collapses in the center, but tastes of caramel dreams. We save 2 squares for Grandma. Friday, budget day. Morning. I spread our earnings on the table. $36 in crumpled bills, $2.65 in coins. Mia sorts denominations while I draft the weekly ledger. Expense.target, spent so far remaining. Groceries, $2014.35. 70 bus. Fares, $10 $6,000 4 pounds laundry, $6,000 Euro electricity, save. $35 $8.27 surplus so far. $3.70. Not a fortune, but black ink instead of red feels like victory. We tape the coin bag inside the sugar jar, our improvised safe. Saturday, the first market run. We rise before dawn and tug Grandma's little wagon to the farmer's market. Vendors recognize us. Rose's grandkids, right? And slip extra carrots into our tote. I trade 2 bakery croissants for a dozen fresh eggs. Mia barters her seashell magnets for a jar of local honey. By 9 a.m., the wagon is heavy with produce that cost half the supermarket's price. At noon, we visit Grandma. The cardiac wing smells less intimidating in daylight. She's brighter, propped against pillows, knitting needles clicking slowly. We present banana bread squares like sacred offerings. She nibbles, eyes crinkling approval. I hear you're working miracles with dishes, she teases, voice still papery but stronger. And flour ratios, I add. I can scale a recipe by percent now. Useful magic, she murmurs, squeezing my hand. Remember, providing isn't only money, it's care, creativity, courage. Sunday, skill swap afternoon. After homework, I tackle the laundry. Mountain. Machines at the Pier laundromat cost $2.50 a load. We combine colors, whisper apologies to Grandma's tidy standards, and watch the drum spin like a portal to fresh starts. While the wash cycles, Mia teaches herself video editing on Grandma's dusty tablet, planning to film bakery tutorials for virtual tips someday. I grin. Entrepreneurship must be genetic. Evening brings our first real family meeting. 2 siblings, 1 clipboard, income streams, keep bakery hours, explore Saturday bait prep at Mr. Riley's, meal plan, oatmeal breakfasts, sandwich fruit lunches, pasta or soup dinners. Emergency fund. Goal, $50 by month end. Self-care. Mia art time. Leo 1 hour nightly to read or just stare at the surf. We sign our names beneath the list, official as any boardroom contract. Monday, rising dough and confidence. At Seabreeze, Mrs. Nakamura trusts me to mix the first batch of cinnamon swirl dough solo. Kneading is strangely meditative. Push, fold, turn, push. Flour coats my forearms like chalk on a gymnast. When the loaves cool, she awards me one to take home. Still warm. Aroma intoxicating. Bus ride back. I calculate mental interest on our savings if we hit $100. Answer, basically pennies, but pennies matter. A tourist couple beside me compliments the bread smell and asks where to buy it. I give directions. Then imagine someday earning commission on every loaf I help create. Tuesday, a lesson in limits. The alarm fails at 4:30. I oversleep, miss the early bus, and arrive at school without finishing an essay on photosynthesis. In science, I nod off, pen slipping a moss-green line across my worksheet. Mrs. Sanders gently taps my desk after class. Carrying a lot lately? I swallow. Just learning to provide. Providers need rest, she says, handing me a vapor rub-scented tea bag and an extension on the essay. Grace feels like oxygen. After school, I slog to the bakery, energy on reserve. Mrs. Nakamura takes one look and banishes me to the break corner with a bowl of miso soup. Tomorrow you may need dough, she warns. Tonight you need sleep, I clock out early, pay deducted by half, pride dented but intact. At home, Mia has already set the table. Pasta shells bathed in tomato, carrot side salad, a note. Chef's night off, eat and crash. My heart swells bigger than my appetite. Wednesday, course corrections. I skip the dawn study session for an extra hour of sleep. At lunch, I actually laugh with Oliver and the crew. Flower jokes fly, but it feels good not to dodge them. After school, bakery work is smooth, efficient. Mrs. Nakamura teaches me how to calculate cost of goods. Flour plus sugar plus labor plus overhead. Price per loaf. Math flexes in my brain like a newly trained muscle. Before bed, Mia and I video call Mom, catching a rare window in her time zone. We parade our ledger, hold up cinnamon bread, report Grandma's progress, now walking short laps in the hallway. Mom's proud tears pixelate on the screen, but we feel them just the same. Thursday, the CommunityNet.news travels. Mr. Nguyen from the hospital book cart drops off a box of used novels for cozy reading. Mrs. Delgado swings by with fish stew and fresh tortillas. Even Mr. Peters, the diner manager who'd said I was too young, delivers a paper bag of crinkle-cut fries that accidentally over-fried. Generosity tastes deep-fried and perfect. Mia makes thank you cards shaped like lighthouses. I scrawl IOUs for dishwashing favors. The network knitting around us is invisible, but strong. Grandma's wisdom proved, providing is also letting people provide for you. Friday, payday perspective. Mrs. Nakamura hands me a sealed envelope. My first official paycheck. Taxes withheld, name spelled correctly. Net amount, $42 $30. I stare, stunned at the evidence that time, soap, and sore forearms can liquefy into currency. We deposit $30 into Grandma's sealed cookie jar for the electrical bill, $5 into the hospital bus fund, $5 into our emergency envelope, $2.30 into coin form for laundry. Surplus? one single dollar. We spend it at the corner shop on 2 cherry lime popsicles and devour them on the seawall, sunset drenching the horizon tangerine. Luxuries taste sweeter when you've audited every cent. Saturday, review and reset. We visit Grandma armed with cinnamon bread, thank you cards, and an updated budget sheet. She listens, eyes shining like polished shells, then asks for a pen. In shaky script, she writes beneath our ledger, "Proud of my lighthouse keepers. Remember, storms come, but beams grow stronger in fog." Grandma? She slips the paper back. Our first official board meeting minutes. On the walk home, Mia slips her hand into mine. "Do you think we're really providing now?" I squeeze back. "We're navigating. Provision is the wind filling. Our sails, but navigation. That's us choosing where to go. The tide laps the shore, steady as breathing. In its rhythm, I hear new words: inventory, payroll, deadlines, but also old ones: laughter, blue pancakes, family. They blend into a song I recognize as ours, remixed but unmistakable. By the time the cottage comes into view, lamp glowing in the window like a promise, I understand a truth bigger than budgets. Providing isn't a finish line. It's a way of moving through the world, shoulders squared, hands open, ready to turn raw dough into daily bread and ordinary hours into something warm enough to share. Tomorrow's page will carry fresh weight, but I'm stronger now. I pocket Grandma's note, ink still damp, love unmistakable, and step across our threshold, prepared to keep the beams bright. Chapter 9. A Glimmer of Recovery. I wake to the smell of cinnamon rising through the floorboards, last night's dough proving in its pan like hope warming under a blanket. Outside, the horizon blushes coral and apricot. It's Monday, 10. Days since Grandma's ambulance ride, 5 days since my first bakery shift, and, according to Dr. Patel's late-night voicemail, the morning we try her legs on solid ground. Onsdags, the phone call, 1:02 a.m. The hospital's number lights up Mom's battered flip phone on the counter. I fumble the answer button, heart and brain colliding. "Leo? Dr. Patel here. Your grandmother's telemetry is clear. We're transferring her to the step-down ward after breakfast. If her blood pressure stays steady while she walks today, we'll set a tentative discharge date. Bring comfortable shoes for her, low heels on the slippers." I scribble slippers, not flip-flops, on die. Mia's math worksheet and nearly laugh when I realize the equation underneath is about positive integers. Nothing feels more positive than this. school on fast-forward math fractions blur into percentages. 80% chance she's home by Friday, I calculate. In English, Ms. Hart assigns a reflective essay on turning points. My pen practically vibrates. Lunchtime, Oliver lobs a grape at my tray and asks if I'm high on bakery frosting. I grin and whisper, "Grandma's moving rooms." He raises both hands like a referee calling touchdown. The day sprints by. At dismissal, Mia meets me near the bike rack, waving a pair of plush lavender slippers we borrowed from Mrs. Delgado's daughter. They have memory foam, she announces, like walking on baby clouds. Bakery Blitz. Seabreeze is a warm blur of sugar and purpose. Mrs. Nakamura lets me clock out an hour early. Before I leave, she tucks a paper bag under my arm. Inside, 2 almond croissants glossy with apricot glaze. Low-sugar almonds for cardiac recovery, she claims, though I suspect it's pure kindness disguised as nutrition. New ward, new rules. 17 p.m. The step-down ward smells less of antiseptic and more of oatmeal cookies with a side of latex. Grandma's new room, 214C, faces west, its window framing a slice of ocean the color of pewter. No more banks of monitors, only a portable vitals machine parked discreetly near the headboard. Grandma sits upright, pale but combed, silver braid tucked behind her shoulder like a river of moonlight. A cheery laminated sign above her bed reads, "Goal of the day, 3 full hallway laps, plus 15 seconds standing on tiptoes." "Look who brought the catwalk shoes," she quips, eyeing the lavender slippers. Her voice is stronger, each syllable less papery. Mia slips them onto Grandma's feet as though crowning royalty. "We brought bribe bread too," she whispers, brandishing the croissants. A physiotherapist named Ms. Torres appears with a walker and a stopwatch. "Ready to show off?" she asks. Grandma plants her palms on the mattress, inhales and swings, her legs over the side. The movement is slow, deliberate, a sunrise stretched to human scale. But it's hers. Ms. Torres adjusts the walker. Grandma grips it like an old helm. Lap 1, past the nurse's station, where Tara and 2 interns cheer, with silent woots. Lap 2, past the mural of dune grasses, where an elderly man raises his IV pole in salute. Lap 3. Grandma pauses at the window near room 218 to watch gulls drafting wind over the parking lot. A hint of coastline in asphalt disguise. Sweat beads on her forehead, but her smile shines. Mia counts aloud. 14, 15, 16. until Grandma straightens on tiptoe for the final second and lands flat-footed, victorious. Ms. Torres marks a bold on the goal chart. If morning vitals keep pace, discharge planning meeting tomorrow, she announces. A corridor. Picnic. Back in the room, we stage a contraband feast. Almond croissants, banana bread squares, and hospital chamomile. Grandma tears off a corner of pastry, savoring with closed eyes. I swear I can taste sea air in this glaze, she sighs. I hand her a folded sheet, our latest budget and meal schedule. Proof we won't starve, I joke. She studies the ledger, fingertip hovering. Over each line, the electricity line nearly met, the emergency fund at $17 and climbing. Pride flickers in her eyes, brighter than monitor lights. You two built scaffolding while I was sleeping, she says, voice thick. That's not just providing, that's architecture. Discharge logistics. Dr. Patel breezes in, crisp, white coat flaring like a sail. He reviews vitals, heart rate 78, BP 118/74, and nods approvingly. We're penciling Friday for release, pending tomorrow's labs. He prints a list of post-discharge edicts. Low-sodium diet, 30-minute daily walks, medication schedule like clockwork, cardiac rehab twice a week. I photograph the sheet. Mia copies it onto a lighthouse-themed notepad, adding doodles of tiny, hearts-lifting weights. Grandma promises compliance but raises an eyebrow. 30-minute walks? Who'll mind the garden? Consider it my training montage, I reply. Evening reflections. Visiting hours vanish too quickly. Before we leave, Grandma presses a note into my palm. In her looping script, hope is a stubborn dough. It rises when you least expect. Let's bake tomorrow's batch together. Outside, hospital windows shimmer gold under the sinking sun, reflecting a sea we can't quite see from ground level. Mia skips ahead, humming the lighthouse poem. I pocket Grandma's note, feel its corner like a compass against my thigh. Back at the cottage. The porch light flickers on as we arrive, our automatic timer working exactly as Grandma said it. Inside, the air smells of yeasted dough ready for tomorrow's bake. We reheat soup, toast leftover baguette, and draft a welcome home checklist, fresh sheets and extra pillows. Salt shaker hidden top shelf, walker-friendly path from bed to kitchen. Bouquet of Mrs. Delgado's hibiscus. We missed you, banner. Mia volunteers glitter. I veto glitter. We compromise on colored markers. Later, while Mia brushes her teeth, I step onto the porch. The lighthouse beam sweeps the horizon. Steady, dependable, unchanged. Yet everything beneath that beam feels altered. My shoulders broader, the cottage warmer, the future less fog and more unfolding coastline. A glimmer of recovery, I think, is not just a medical milestone. It's the moment your guarded breath turns into an ordinary exhale again. It's a walker rolling down a hallway, croissants smuggled in a backpack, a lavender slipper tapping tile, a chart marked under goal of the day. It's realizing the tide that pulled Grandma away is sliding back, carrying her, carrying us home. I whisper into the night, half prayer, half promise. One more lap, Grandma. We'll walk it with you. And the wind off the ocean answers with a hushed, salt-sweet yes. Chapter 10. New Horizons. I wake to a sound I haven't heard in nearly 2 weeks. The soft percussion of Grandma's tea kettle rattling against the stove grate. It's 6:30 Thursday morning, the day after her triumphant hallway lapse, and one day before her scheduled discharge. Sunlight peels through the kitchen curtains like gold leaf, gilding everything familiar. The chipped enamel sink, Mia's doodles magneted to the fridge, the old cuckoo clock ticking a wink faster than it should. I pause on the threshold, suddenly aware that our cottage has begun rehearsing for Grandma's return, the way a theater warms up before opening night. Bread dough proofs under a towel on the counter. Fresh sheets flap on the clothesline, salt air snapping them crisp. Even the leaky faucet chooses this morning to fall silent, as if minding its manners. Farewell, step-down ward. By 8:40. We're standing outside room 214C, arms full of contraband comforts. Lavender slippers, a card signed by half the town, and a paper bag of cinnamon rolls smuggled from Seabreeze at dawn. Grandma sits in the visitor chair, already dressed, loose denim skirt, sailor-striped blouse, and a wide-brimmed sun hat that makes her look like the captain of a very stylish ship. Nurse Tara wheels in final paperwork. Vitals remain textbook, she beams. Dr. Patel cleared discharge for 11. Mia and I exchange electric grins. Boat ropes snapped, harbor gates open. Tara hands us a folder thick with instructions, medication grids, rehab appointments, dietary guidelines. I tuck it into my backpack where textbooks used to live. Ms. Torres appears, ready for one last lap. Grandma rises, walker steady, slippers whispering across the tile. She completes 4 circuits today. At the nurse's station, a spontaneous clapline forms, orderlies, therapists, techs all applauding. Someone blasts a 5-second snippet of Eye of the Tiger through a phone speaker. Grandma curtsies, cheeks pink, discharge process swirls, signatures, ID bands snipped, IV port removed. By 11:08 a.m., we wheel her into sunlight, where Mrs. Delgado's hatchback waits like a getaway car festooned in balloons that read, "Sail home soon." The homecoming corridor. Grandma insists on crossing the cottage threshold under her own steam. Mia and I stand behind, hands hovering. She lifts the walker, eases up the porch step, pauses. Sea breeze lifts her braid. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then she's inside, eyes traveling room to room as if reacquainting herself with beloved characters in an unfinished novel. The Welcome Home banner stretches across the living room archway, block letters fashioned from bakery parchment, paper outlined in pastel marker. Grandma laughs, tracing each letter with her gaze. "Looks edible," she jokes. "Everything you two touch turns into food." We guide her to the rocker. The chair groans happily. Wood remembers its favorite rhythm. Mia places a hibiscus bouquet on the side table, scarlet petals flaring like confetti. I set a bell within reach. Grandma's idea, not mine. For summoning. "Minions," she claims. "New routines, same ocean. Lunch is tomato basil soup, low in sodium but rich in comfort." Grandma eats slowly, seasoning with stories instead of salt. Tales of the cardiac ward's midnight humor. A 90-year-old roommate who swore by tango as physical therapy. Each anecdote is a buoy marking the distance we've traveled from fear to relief. After dishes, we review the rehab schedule. Tuesdays and Fridays, 20-minute sessions at the community center gym. Daily, 2 neighborhood laps with walker or, eventually, cane. Meal plan: bakery bread limited to 2 slices, fruits unlimited. Salted butter replaced by olive oil spread. Mia sketches a calendar, adding stickers. Lighthouses for rehab days. Starfish for medication refills. Electric bill envelope emerges next. I slap $35 on the table, our first major victory. Grandma lifts the flap, eyes shining. "Paid in full," she pronounces, stamping the date like a notary of resilience. Horizons expand. Dusk paints the sky cantaloupe. We roll Grandma down the bluff path to the beach, the walker's wheels crunching over packed sand. Gulls wheel overhead chanting their eternal gossip. At the tide line, water folds and refolds itself, practicing infinity. Grandma parks the walker, digs toes into cool sand. "Every horizon," she says, "is a line of questions. Which ones we chase, Ah, that's living. From her tote, she withdraws 3 seashells, one smooth, one ridged, one spiraled, each labeled in her tidy script. Patience, provision, possibility. She presses the possibility shell into Mia's palm, the patience shell into mine, and keeps provision for herself. Souvenirs, she explains, from the journey we just took. Mia studies her shell, eyes reflecting the molten sky. What's our next journey? I open my mouth, ready to list doctor appointments and budgeting goals, but Grandma lifts a finger. First, we rest on this shore. Then we build new boats. Plans born under starlight. Night falls crisp and moon-polished. We convene on the porch wrapped in quilts, the inaugural meeting of what Grandma dubs Team New Horizons. Agenda, health. Compass, track blood pressure, pulse, daily steps, income wins. My bakery hours continue. Mia will sell beach glass jewelry at Saturday market under Mrs. Delgado's stall. Learning currents. I'll tutor Oliver in math, $5 an hour. Grandma will teach us budgeting with actual spreadsheet software. No more napkins. Dream. Charts. By end of summer, we save for a second-hand bicycle for easier hospital commutes and for Mia's art supply scholarship contest. We set quarterly checkpoints, July 1st, September 30th, each date crowned with a lighthouse doodle. The plan feels ambitious, but not impossible, like plotting constellations for a voyage you've already begun. The first normal and extraordinary morning, Friday dawn. No hospital beeps, no 4 a.m. alarm for bakery shift. Mrs. Nakamura granted me the day off. Instead, I join Grandma in the kitchen where she sits with a notepad, sketching a salt-restricted version of our beloved blueberry pancakes. Oat flour, mashed bananas, just a whisper of sugar. We cook side by side, spatulas, tapping in sync. The new recipe tastes different. Nutty, subtle, but the laughter seasoning it is exactly the same. Mia bursts in wearing her school backpack plus a necklace prototype. 3 sea glass drops suspended on twine. Think it'll sell? She asks. Think it'll shine? The necklace does both. Especially when Grandma kisses her forehead, leaving a flower smudge shaped like approval. We eat at the table, sunlight braiding through the window bars. There's homework to catch up, bills still lurking, cardio walk scheduled, bread to knead tonight. But in this precise heartbeat, everything aligns. 3 plates, 3 hearts, one endlessly patient horizon outside our door. A letter to tomorrow. That afternoon, while Grandma naps, I sit at her secretary desk and start a letter addressed simply to tomorrow. Dear Tomorrow, today we paid an electric bill, invented a pancake, mapped a summer, and learned the exact weight of lavender. Slippers. We're no longer afraid of ambulances or empty cottages. Please arrive curious. We have saved a seat and a slice of low-sodium banana bread for you. The Harper Lighthouse Crew. I seal the letter in an envelope and tape it inside the cookie jar where we keep our emergency fund. An odd place, maybe, but I like the idea that hope accrues interest alongside small bills and pocket change. Evening Beacon. At sunset, we climb the bluff again, this time without the walker, just Grandma's, arm through mine, Mia skipping ahead with a kite shaped like a stingray. The lighthouse's first beam ignites, sweeping the sea in stately arcs. We watch until its rhythm merges with our pulses, steady, dependable, guiding. Grandma leans close. Remember when I said a lighthouse sometimes needs a lighthouse? She whispers. I nod. You two were mine, she says. Now let's keep building beacons, inside us and around us, so the next lost ship knows where to land. Above us, the kite dips and soars. Below, waves comb the sand clean for another day. The horizon glows, a thin, bright promise where sky meets forever water, inviting, unafraid. We turn toward home, footprints overlapping, shells rattling in pockets. New chores await, new recipes, new worries, but also new laughter, new light. We carry our shells of patience, provision, possibility, like secret compasses. And as the cottage lamplight flickers on, answering the lighthouse miles away, I realize this story that began with silence and fear has unfolded into something vaster. A daily expedition into uncharted good. New horizons aren't distant lines. They're moments like this, when the future tilts its face toward you and says, ready. When you are, we are ready. Great work today. Every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to mastering your English listening and speaking skills. Remember, progress comes with patience and consistency. If this story inspired you or helped you in your learning journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Easy English Spark channel for more lessons and stories. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep believing in your growth. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep shining.